Hey, how's it going guys? My name is Aylwood and today we're taking a look at Skeletal Avenger, a brand new game just released through early access on Steam but will eventually make it to all platforms, and to answer the ultimate question, is it worth your time? And as this is yet another game still in early access at the moment, the devs are obviously confident enough to charge us for it, incomplete or not, which means it's open to honest, unhindered opinion the moment it's purchased. So keep this in mind. So, Skeletal Avenger is a single/multiplayer indie roguelite hack-and-slash dungeon crawler. Set in a magical, monster-infested kingdom, you take on the role of a reanimated skeleton, seeking vengeance against those who murdered you. You'll be traversing procedurally generated dungeons, utilizing a variety of weapons, armor and perks, all while carving your way through the hordes of enemy monsters. So aesthetically, the first thing worth mentioning is Skeletal Avenger's unique, crude and unpolished object design, similar to low polygon 3D model mesh, giving the game a very simple and refined look to it while also providing an unusual, quirky charm that really seems to match the art style and gameplay surprisingly well, a style that's becoming increasingly popular with 3D indie games nowadays. Colours used are surprisingly dark yet quite vibrant in general, giving the game a definite, light-hearted, somewhat childish feel to it, except with a touch of seriousness that really brings out that dungeon crawling aspect while also enhancing the game's lighting. Speaking of lighting, very bright, dense yet simple effects that bring a strong sense of magic to the world around you, except in a more subtle manner due to their powerful particle effects combined with gentle radiation distances. Torchlights, smoke effects and even your character light effect especially demonstrate these qualities and create a generally cozy aesthetic presence anyone can appreciate. Textures and detail are by far my favourite visual asset of the game though. Object materials and textures have been designed in such a basic, obvious way, it's almost impossible to mistake any kind of object detail with another. I especially like the extremely obvious floor tile separation designs. I don't know whether the devs were just being lazy or seriously committed to a very basic look. Either way, the level layouts and object placements are so simple, they don't even try to hide their own object placement methods, a feature that seems to really push a clean, symmetrical design I simply enjoyed looking at. Work smarter, not harder, as they say. The UI is okay, generally clean design with just enough information on screen and no hindrances on your focus area. A couple of UI animations would be nice though, such as a moving health orb or mini-map border animation to add more of a high quality look to the screen. Other screens however, like skill selection, inventory display and shops are practically flawless in my opinion and really suit the visual theme of the game perfectly. Character and enemy designs are not the best, not so much because of how they look, but more because of their animation. Most creatures have a very weak attack animation when compared to their size, and I can't help but notice it. Smaller creatures like rats, slimes, and spellcasters, and even your character, are decent. After all, you are swinging weapons larger than the entire length of your body, but larger creatures like trolls and lizard men are very lackluster and lack the powerful attack animations I was expecting, something I'm hoping will be touched up in future. Overall, a clean, simple, quirky visual standard that manages to use its own simplicity to its advantage. The very few OSTs available in Skeletal Avenger are pretty good, a seamless combination of orchestrated, light vocals and SFX sounds used to create some quite intense, powerful soundtracks, except with the occasional light-hearted sound effect here and there to reference a more child-friendly theme. Each track has a mysterious, fantasy feel to it, with the addition of a somewhat memorable, distinct main melody that does a good job at maintaining a consistent soundtrack quality, especially due to the way each track builds and releases tension mention. Boss tracks, however, are considerably more powerful in general and seem to give off a far more serious vibe when compared to other soundtracks of the game, something I hope to see more of in future. Everything else sound related is quite decent. Dealing damage, collecting gold, navigating menus and more are definitely on the light-hearted fantasy side of the spectrum, with enemy spells, weapon swings and explosions sounding a bit weaker than I was expecting, but seem to get the job done anyway. The lack of voice acting was a bit of a shame considering the large amount of enemies with a vocalized sound effect compared to the very few dialogue scenes that could have easily been filled in. Definitely a missed opportunity there. All in all, a decent soundtrack quality that easily enhances your dungeon crawling experience. Now for the gameplay. So, Skeletal Avenger doesn't have any difficulty option to choose from before you play. It is what it is, whether you like it or not, just like every good game should be. The lore of the game is extremely simple. As mentioned, you take on the role of an unnamed, previously human assassination victim, simply brought back from the dead by some sort of necromancer to obey his every command. Plot twist, instead of being the mindless skeleton as expected, you've somehow retained your consciousness as well as your memories, meaning you now fight for revenge against the person that killed you. And that's pretty much it. Dialogue scenes between you and the necromancer are extremely brief and do nothing to expand on the already very basic plot. When you first start the game, you're shown a 13-second cutscene of 2 screens, which barely explain the assassination story. You're then thrown straight into the game as you break out of your stone coffin, take control of your character, and play. If you're familiar with other games of the genre like Diablo or Hades, you'll feel right at home with this game's controls. You have your general movement commands as you would expect, with the addition of a primary attack, secondary attack, skull throw, and dash ability. Your primary attack is a standard 3-hit combo when spammed. The secondary is unique to your equipped weapon and tends to be more AoE orientated. Skull throw is a high damaged ranged attack where you throw your head at the enemy, which needs to be collected in order to throw it again. And dashing is your standard evasive ability that runs on a 3-charge system with a short cooldown on each. The base concept of the game is quite similar to other hack and slash dungeon crawlers. You select a dungeon to tackle, clear monsters, avoid hazards, collect loot, delve deeper and deeper until you reach the dungeon boss, kill the boss, teleport back to your hub to spend your collected currency, rinse and repeat. A simple concept, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it, as they say. What makes Skeletal Avenger somewhat unique, however, is its skeleton, delving and equipment system. If you ever find yourself running out of HP and dying, which, spoiler alert, is probably going to happen, you're brought to a skeleton selection screen where I'm assuming your character and consciousness are transferred into someone else's corpse, which comes fully equipped with its own passive, skill ups, name and title. Very exciting stuff. But don't think you can change character at any time without consequence, because dying in this game will cost you half of your total bloodstones, a punishment that can seriously affect your game progression. When it comes to delving, you first select your dungeon from a world map, which also details a brief path. This path is to detail what to expect from the next room you'll be progressing to once you locate the corresponding stairs or ladder to take you there. Each floor can contain a weapon stand that drops a random equipable item, challenge shrines that grant bloodstones when completed, healing wells that restore HP either for free or at the cost of bloodstones, or glowing corpses that grant you a passive ability until you either die or complete the dungeon. These abilities can include added fire damage to your primary attack, dashes can leave a necrotic puddle underfoot that deals damage for a few seconds, or after collecting your skull from the ground you deal increased damage. When it comes to equipment, weapon and armor pieces can increase your HP cap, grant a certain amount of armor, as well as a similar but generally weaker passive compared to dungeon abilities. Each item comes with a specified rarity, which can range from common all the way up to legendary if you're lucky. Pro tip, try to prioritize gear with a high armor amount instead of HP, as certain dungeon passives can grant you the ability to replenish armor on certain enemy kills. And don't forget that the helmet you have equipped can change the way your skull throw ability works as well. Other gameplay mechanics include gold being this game's most common currency, which is used to buy pretty much everything in-game, and bloodstones obviously being required for game progression. Bosses and challenge shrines are your only source of bloodstones. Combine this with the fact that every time you die, you lose half of your collection, making these stones very valuable and very easy to lose. Restoring HP is just as difficult, since healing wells are your only reliable source of replenishment. You don't even get fully restored after completing an entire dungeon, down and returning back to the hub. Absolutely stinking. Combat, as you can imagine, is far more intense due to these mentioned mechanics. Your dash ability is a godsend when dealing with large groups of enemies, and your 3 damaging abilities are all you seem to need to get the job done. Enemy AI is pretty straightforward since most enemies tend to follow you until they're within range, then simply attack. Other enemies like spellcasters, slimes and ghosts, however, seem to have unique movements to mix up the challenge, which can easily catch you off guard when surrounded by groups of monsters. Certain enemies can sometimes have an armor bar as well as HP, which needs to be depleted before the target is susceptible to any form of stagger. Pretty much all terrain hazards like exploding barrels and spike traps affect both the player as well as enemies, so be sure to use these to your advantage. Most bosses are simply larger models of existing monsters that come with a charging ability as well as an AoE slam when you're within close range. Something to definitely watch out for. So for the ultimate question, is it worth your time? The potential for a great title is definitely there, the aesthetics are quirky, the gameplay is wonderfully unforgiving, but the lore could use some serious work. I'm going to give this game a no contest. Unfortunately, due to an oversight on my behalf, I've pretty much paid close to full price for a game that is only 40% complete at the time of purchase and completion. Of all the early access games I've played, I had no idea devs were allowed to actually sell a game when it's not even halfway complete, which was technically my own fault for not looking close enough at the game's Steam page before clicking the purchase button. Something that definitely will not happen again, I can assure you. I like the brief yet informative training mission before going to the hub for the first time. I like the unique wall fade effects when approaching a wall that could otherwise hinder your focus area, but most of all I really like the simple, light-hearted combat. The inventory and ability system are very easy to understand and created a pleasantly light character development experience I simply couldn't help but enjoy. And the importance of healing wells and bloodstones really bumped up the game's overall difficulty quite a bit and really forces you into a serious mindset at all times, since deaths are so punishing to your progression. For what was available in the early access version, I have to say I definitely recommend it more than I wouldn't, but I cannot rightfully give this game a true rating based on only 40% of a finished product. For those wondering why I don't just wait until the game was fully complete before I made a review, unfortunately I'm quite a busy guy and have deadlines to meet. I bought and completed this game with the intention to review it immediately, and to miss a deadline upload for you guys due to a technicality is absolutely out of the question. As I said, a lesson learned and a mistake that definitely won't happen again. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you want to see more games I'll be reviewing in future. Who knows, maybe I'll take another look at the game sometime in the distant future once it's fully complete. Very unlikely if I'm being perfectly honest, but never say never. And as always, all the best guys, take care.